the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. The town hall is closed to the public. This meeting will be broadcast live, local access cable on Acton TV or streaming online at the Acton TV YouTube live channel, and audio will be broadcast live on the radio on WAEM 94.9 PM. To participate remotely from a computer, please click on the link below to join the public meeting. Webinar https://zoom.us/j/503-918-785, or from a telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raised hand feature to request to speak. Are there any citizens, David?
Yes, there's one. Hold on just a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, it's Carol. Carol from West Acton.
Hi, Carol.
Hi there. I have two comments. The first one is about what's been happening with all the Black Lives Matter protests. And I've been attending a lot of rallies and protests and educational events, and I've learned an awful lot this past week. And while I've understood that people of color are disproportionately impacted by poverty, I became more educated about the numbers this week, in particular the numbers around extreme inequity in housing. And I started thinking about what I could do here locally. The inequity is striking in that despite creating hundreds of what are considered affordable housing units in Acton, the number of Black and brown people living in Acton is still close to zero. One explanation of the reason why is virtually all affordable housing created in Acton has been for people making more than $50,000 a year. One way I can advocate for closing the inequity gap, and I'm almost done, is to advocate for very low-income housing. The income disparity is most critical in the 50% median and below, and yet virtually all of the housing in the last decade is from 50% and above. Right now, we have the opportunity for 4 projects in Acton, which are considered to be affordable housing projects, but all there are for people making $50,000 and above. 3 of those projects the town has a lot of control over, either because we're in safe harbor or because the town is actually funding the project. Either way, we have the opportunity to ensure that a significant portion of these housing units in the pipeline are for people making below $50,000 a year, a focus of the new housing production plan. So I'm hoping that you can do that for the Grandview and the Powder Mill, increase opportunities for people that need housing the most. If Acton does not do this, it'll impact people of African descent the most. Acton's a beautiful town, and we aim to keep it that way, but it's not appropriate to claim that we want diversity, equity, and inclusion, credos expressed in our master plan, if we keep creating housing for people only making $50,000 a year and above. So I urge us to, we've talked the talk, and now let's walk the walk. That's my first comment. And my second comment is about the carbon footprint program. It seems to presume that growth happens and that the carbon footprint would presume that we wouldn't do anything to slow growth of single-family homes, for example. I think that I hope that you ask the Green Advisory Board to, and not advocate for limiting growth, but at least measure the environmental impact of that growth so that we can decide what we want to do as a town. If we can't measure it, we can't manage it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
No, that's all, Joe.
Okay. John? Town Manager's report.
Good evening. Nice to see you all again on our weekly, sometimes multiple per week meetings. Operational updates are status quo in terms of working on responding to this pandemic, identifying ways to create opportunities for residents to access services while the town hall is closed and other facilities are closed. I visited the library today. and it's a great operation that they have running over there to provide for curbside pickup on a limited basis. So I'd encourage residents to check that out and call the library during business hours tomorrow to find out more about how they can pick out a few books and restart some reading that they've been missing out on. And other departments are doing a great job as well in just continuing services as we have been, or finding ways to continue to reopen some services in limited ways without having the building be reopened. So great work by staff. There's some other COVID updates I can read to you later during that portion of the program. Just a couple things that came through lately through the board. There was a question about a gas leak in South Acton. I checked that out and I talked to Corey about it, and I'm going to hopefully hear back from National Grid tomorrow. They are doing work in the area, not that particular neighborhood, but they've been doing work in town, and so we're going to take a look and see if that's on the list or not to be repaired. And if it's not, we'll escalate it further as was requested by the resident. We received a survey from the LRTA over the weekend. They're looking for feedback on their services, and I'll distribute it later. But it's very important for our community who we use the LRTA indirectly through many of our transportation programs. So it's important for us to weigh in on the services they provide to make sure that our voices are heard. So I'll put that information out tonight or tomorrow for everybody. An update on Concord Water. We had a few meetings within the last month with representatives from Concord, where there was a discussion between the town manager and I over there on how to roll out a communication plan. We're pretty much wrapped up with the process of developing that. Pretty soon, hopefully maybe this week, but definitely by next week, there'll be a subscription service available for residents who want to subscribe to updates on the Concord Water, the Nagog Pond Treatment Plant project. So we'll put out more information about that. We have been engaging with the neighborhoods near the project site sort of preliminarily since the board met a few weeks ago. The warrant will be published tonight. Mark is putting some finishing touches on it and finalizing some language in coordination with town council and other folks. And then there's a moderators meeting this Thursday evening. The moderator had requested everyone send presentations to her by the 17th, which will be Wednesday. I've already have arrangements with a few of you to work on presentations for that purpose. I know the CPC is working on a presentation to try to get to the moderator in the same time frame. So if anyone else needs assistance with that, please reach out to my office and we'll try to do what we can to help you, either do it through Zoom or otherwise. One other thing. Oh, the pump track. There was a request for a pump track over on Quarry Road. That's something that we can bring to the board when it's listed on an agenda item and provide a full workup of information and a presentation. But my initial understanding is that it's municipal property, not forest property. So the selectmen would be the body to decide whether or not it's appropriate use for that site. The pump track is
what is a pump track?
It's a path. It's a path in the woods, basically, but it's been made up a little bit to be more fun. Is the easiest way to describe it. But it's for certain kind of bicycles that like to go fast and go off jumps through the woods. So that's, I think, the easiest way to describe it. Someone may have a more technical description for you out there. But I think generally the process would be we'd bring it to you, and you decide whether it's appropriate and if any conditions you wanted to place on using it that way. I don't understand there to be any major infrastructure needs associated with it, but as I said, provide a full presentation when it's on the agenda. And
Okay, thank you.
Probably be after town meeting unless there's urgency that I wasn't aware of.
Joan?
Yes?
Yeah, I just had two questions. So when you're talking about presentations, those are the slides that the moderator wants for the Thursday meeting.
Yeah, so the slides are what your presentation will be, the outline of your presentation, and then we can go over that with the moderator on the 18th at her meeting. And then we're gonna have to actually record pre-record, for those that choose to do that, pre-record presentations using Zoom or some other format to make them
When do
available.
you anticipate doing that? Like early next week?
Those are supposed to be online by the 23rd, so we got to do it soon. Yeah.
Like Monday?
Yeah.
So we have the weekend. Other question I had is with the warrant going out tonight, I dropped John and Mark a note early this morning. They have done a sensational job at getting ready for town meeting, particularly the outdoor seating. I wouldn't want to see it fall short if the meeting goes past 8 o'clock and it starts getting dark out. Would it be wise to move the start time back a half an hour from 6 to 5:30, just to be on the absolute safe side? That would give us a good 2.5 hours plus of daylight to complete the business of the meeting.
Peter?
I was just gonna, okay, I'm unmuted. I was just gonna say, I think that's up to the moderator at this point. But, well, actually, the warrant hasn't been published yet.
Yeah.
Yes. But once the warrant gets published, the town moderator can change the time.
But we could change the time now.
Well, we could change the time now, yeah. Let's see, there's one other thing I was gonna say. In the past, the staff, basically Steve and Brian, have put the slides together and put them into our box, that app we have. Are we gonna have that happen again?
Yeah, so we'll make any slide presentations that are needed. Yes, we are doing that. And if you're a sponsor or if you're a speaker for an article, we'll coordinate with you. We're not anticipating a need to pre-record the entire allotment of consent agenda items, which we do have a slide available as backup for those, as we always would for town meeting.
Okay, thank you. So I think John's asking whether we should change the time before the warrant goes out, actually. It can't be reprinted at this point, so.
Dean?
Yeah, I'm certainly concerned about the problem of people running out of daylight out there, but I fear that starting the meeting at 5:30 puts a real burden on folks who might be working outside of Acton. Not everybody's on Zoom. And I think it's really going to create some problems for them. The parking lot out there has got, some pretty good parking lot lights that I think would probably be sufficient. And maybe there's some light towers that can be brought in to supplement that. But, I've been around that parking lot at night and you can pretty much read a printed page without too much trouble.
Well, okay, I'll withdraw the thought, the suggestion, and then just go forward at 6 o'clock.
We can strongly suggest that people get there and get set, get themselves positioned by 5:30 so that we can start promptly at 6, or just encourage people to arrive early, I guess.
Yeah, I think people will come early. All right, it's past 7 p.m. and we have a request for a grant of location to Eversource Energy to install approximately 34 feet of conduit at Woodbury Lane. Is there someone from Eversource?
So we have Corey York available to speak to this. This is related to the grant that we received to do the charging station in the back parking lot. We had to do some electrical work back there, and this is just right away back there. Corey, are you on the phone? Or
I am, yes. Yep. Yeah, just like John said, this is has to do with the new electric vehicle charging station that we're putting in at the rail lot down behind the Ballancourt House, or the Asa Palin House.
Okay.
Last fall, we applied for 2 grants, one through Eversource and one through the state. The Eversource grant that we were awarded over the winter had them take full responsibility to do the install of all the electric utility from the pole over to our unit. And then we were granted a state grant through for a public access charging station, which gave us funds towards the actual equipment. So we had, I think back in February, Eversource had come through with a plan showing their connection from the pole at the corner of Woodbury and Minuteman over to a new cabinet and then to the charging stations. What this is just kind of that final legal process that gives them the right to have that conduit in the right of way. And once they get this approval, they'll be able to install the electric meter and then authorize our vendor to put the new charging station in. The grant from the state, I think we have to have everything done by about mid-July, have the work done and the paperwork all in. So this is kind of I think the last legal step for Eversource to finish up that.
Okay. Questions from the board? John?
So Corey, this is one charging station that's being added. Is that correct?
Correct. It's right now we got a grant for one electric vehicle charging station. It has 2 ports, so it'll be a dual port like the one up by Town Hall right now. What Eversource has done is they sized the capacity of the hookup to allow a few additional ones in the future if we've ever wanted, but we're only proposing one at this time.
So it's one charging station and it can service 2 cars simultaneously.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And this was paid for by two grants that you people obtained?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well done.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there a motion? Dean?
Yeah, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the application from Eversource to allow the installation of the conduit under Woodbury Lane for this purpose.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
Mr. Martin? Aye. Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Trotter? Aye. Unanimous.
Motion carried. Discuss the Department of Revenue emergency spending authorization.
So late this afternoon, and I apologize, but it came together. You know, things are happening on a daily basis, and this came together later than we wanted to. But basically, we wanted to, or we're required to have the board consider what's a 1/12 budget in the event that our budget doesn't get passed by June 30th. Otherwise, the government will be able to run. So this is just simply a proposal for what a 1/12 budget would look like, that we would, if the board approves this, we would submit it to DOR, and then we'd be covered in the event that we don't, for some reason, have a budget passed by June 30th. And Steve is, I think, available if there's further questions.
Peter? Peter?
I don't know if Steve's here. It says the letter from you, John, to DOR says that deficit payments will be made from available funds in the Treasury. Is that the excess between the appropriations and the actual town expenditures that will pay for these deficits? I mean, I understand this is going to be reimbursed by FEMA, right? And the CDGB program, I guess. But the letter says deficit payments will be made from available funds in the Treasury. I just didn't understand what that meant. I guess that's the reimbursements.
Yeah, it allows us to carry a deficit on the books legally, whereas otherwise we wouldn't be able to carry a deficit on the books. I actually gave you the intro for the second action I'm asking the board to take tonight. So maybe I should start over. So we're asking the board to consider 2 things. The first is what I mentioned as a 1/12 budget that we need in the event that we don't have a budget passed. The second is it would be the ability for us to deficit spend for COVID-related expenses. So state law requires that all deficits as of June 30th not covered by reimbursements through September 30th will result in a reduction in our community's free cash reserves, which we do not want to happen. So this would allow us to prevent that from happening, to keep our reserve levels where they are and not have to use our reserve levels to prepay for things that were going to be paid for by FEMA and other federal grant monies.
So you just want us to approve this, is that,
Yeah, so there's a
David?
motion.
Yeah, I just have a question for John. So the first one, the one that's on the screen now, that's to authorize a 1/12 budget in the case that town meeting doesn't pass a budget. And the second one has nothing to do with the town meeting vote. It just allows us to cover expenses without using free cash.
Yep, yeah, they're just two financial housekeeping matters that we're presenting at the same time.
So I can read the motion, Joan, on the first one if we're ready.
Yes.
I move that in the event the town does not approve the FY 2021 budget by June 30th, 2020, that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves the July 2020 deficit spending estimate of $14,114,294 to operate the community.
Is there a second?
Second.
Peter seconded. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Trotter, aye, unanimous.
All right. Is there a second action we need to take, John?
So yeah, if the board would consider authorizing me to send the letter that's shown on the screen right now to the DOR, which is basically allowing us to deficit spend up to $750,000 towards COVID, with the understanding that that is money that we would be getting back, but it may not come back to us in time to meet other statutory requirements.
So is there a motion, David?
I move that we authorize the town manager to request from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue to allow the town to have $750,000 in overall deficit spending to cover expenses incurred for COVID-19 and which will eventually be reimbursed.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. I got a question.
Peter? Okay.
Yeah, I've been dealing with a thing called the Electronic Signatures Act that makes all electronic signatures enforceable. Does the town have any kind of software that could just have us sign this online? Seems pretty straightforward.
We were looking at those, and it's something that we think we're going to try to do in the short term. We have not done it yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Trotter, aye, unanimous.
Okay. So the next item is updates and discussion regarding COVID.
So, thank you. I just wanted to mention that if you're following our updates online, I haven't been posting them daily, and I'm probably going to reduce it to a less frequent update. But we haven't had a new case, which is great news, in about 10 days.
Great.
So today we have, the number of total cases remains at 171 that we've had for almost 2 weeks now. And there's only 2 cases that are currently active, or 2 people that are currently in isolation due to being within the required period that they need to isolate. And so that's good news. It's a trend that continues to go down, and it's consistent with the statewide trend. And I just wanted to mention a few things though. even though we have this good news, we need people to still understand that all the things that we've been saying for the last 3 months still apply. The washing your hands, the monitoring your symptoms, staying home if you're sick, social distancing when you're inside and when you're outside and not able to keep apart. Wear face coverings when you can't keep distance, and use the ones that are appropriate, not the ones that we need for first responders and medical folks. People over 65 and people with underlying health conditions are still at a higher risk and should continue to stay home as much as possible and find ways to accomplish errands and other things through resources and services that are available. One other note of good news that I want to mention cautiously is that Life Care Center has become now, as of yesterday, or I guess as of Friday, COVID-free, which is great news.
Hooray.
Residents are now able to have visits from family members within the governor's guidelines. I think they have to be outside and with 6 feet distance. So that's great news, but I think people need to know that we still need to keep track of this and be vigilant and follow all the protocols and guidelines that we've been doing all along. And hopefully we continue to see that trend go down and continue to have more things open up around us. And
Thank you.
okay, and then 2 other updates, COVID related. So the small business grant program was a smashing success. The deadline is today, and we received, I think, 100 and, I don't have the latest number, but we had over 130 people pulled the application. And we've had, I believe it was close to 50 send them in. And as you know, the board authorized $100,000, and most everyone put in a request for the full amount allowed of $4,000. So we expect to be able to award 25 of these grants. We're going to finish the due diligence of reviewing each application to make sure that they meet the eligibility requirements. And for all of the ones that do meet the eligibility requirements, we're going to do a lottery on Thursday. And Joan Gardner, our chair, has volunteered to participate in the lottery. I'm not sure if you'll be pulling ping pong balls or what we'll do. Yeah, so you're definitely not going to be doing that. But we're going to figure out a way to do it, and we're going to do it on either Facebook Live or on Zoom so people can watch it. And we'll be very excited to award about 25 of these on Thursday, and the Board of Selectmen will bring a full list to the Board of Selectmen at your meeting so that you can recognize all the people that you're helping out in this difficult time. The other program that you approved and we put out has a deadline of today as well. And I think that is going to be subscribed fully as well. Laura Ducharme has been working very hard with our RHSO to process those applications. And I think as of tonight, she told me that they had about 60 people inquire about it. And I think they're going to have about 15 applications when it's all said and done. So we're helping out people, and it's really great. It's really great use of this fund. So hopefully we get, and then we also submitted that funding request to DHCD on Friday afternoon, and we asked them for $2 million, which is $400,000 for the town of Acton, and then $400,000 for the other 4 communities that we've partnered with. And if we're successful with that, we would be able to then write grants to micro enterprises, which are businesses of less than 5 people, and to public social service providers. So we should know about that within about a month. So I'm optimistic about our application, and I look forward to reporting back to the board as soon as we find out.
That's great. John?
But John, should we think about, particularly with the small business grant program, that it is oversubscribed and hopefully all 50 people will be eligible? Should we have on for next week a discussion of whether we want to make a second grant available?
Yeah, that's really a decision for the board. I think it's a program that the business community really responded well to.
Yeah.
we had help. We did some publicity. We had an intern, college student, help us do some cold calling to businesses to make sure they understood the opportunities available. And everyone we've heard from, even the ones that weren't eligible, said that they appreciated it and thanked the town and the selectmen for making this available. So, you know, the asks that we're going to need for that just under 2.1 million for COVID CARES Act funding relief that's available to us. We don't have it all spent yet, so we can discuss what the projections would look like, but we're not going to have a good sense of a lot of the costs until later this summer.
Okay, Peter?
You're muted.
Peter, did you have your hand up?
I was going to support that. So we committed 150,000, right? From this source of $2 million at this point.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, if we could have an analysis of how many people applied who didn't get funding because we ran out of money, and how much it would cost to fund the rest of them, and then some estimate of what you think the town might have to apply for to get reimbursed, that would be helpful.
If we could put that on for next Monday night, a discussion, because the key thing is getting these grants in and approved and the money out as quickly as we can. That's all we've been getting.
So just
John?
Just want to clarify my response to your question, what we've used so far. We actually put in a request for 295,000 for total of what we've spent to date for COVID-related expenses. 150 of it was for the two programs we just discussed. The remaining was for all the other response actions that we've taken that are eligible for that source of reimbursement.
Peter?
Yeah, there was a question about whether they had to approve the actual amount or just the outline of the program. So we now have $150,000. If we want to up that, we have to go back to the state to request the ability to commit additional money to that, or can the Board of Selectmen just vote to do that?
It's a local decision. They haven't technically approved the use of the 100,000, they haven't approved the 150,000 yet. We just submitted it on Friday. We haven't heard back yet, so we can wait to see if we get any feedback on that, and we may have some initial responses by your next meeting next week.
Okay.
That's great.
Now we need committee appointments and reappointments.
Lisa, Tom, are you available to walk us through what we're asking the board to do here?
You're muted, Lisa.
Now she's unmuted.
Lisa?
She may have a local microphone problem as well.
So these are reappointments that we do every year in June for all the volunteer boards and committees that help run our government. And I don't have the exact list in front of me, but I can find it. Cool.
I can do that in a second, John, 1 second.
I think we got an email from Nancy Tavernier this afternoon that she is not looking to get reappointed to the ACHC, which is different than what this thing says.
Well, can we take them one at a time?
There's a lot of them. I think we can just look through it and do them all at once.
Yeah, I would move that we approve the slate of reappointments submitted by the VCC with the change of Nancy Tavernier taking off, being reappointed to the Community Housing Corporation at her request. I think the other 3 people on the ACHC, she said, were being reappointed.
Yeah, there's, that's one of my liaison groups. There'll be 2 new people coming on, Andy Ricard and Judy Hodge, and their applications are pending before the VCC, so we should hear from the VCC soon. I understand Andy McGee, it said no response, but there was an email earlier today that he will be more than willing to be reappointed to the Open Space and Recreation Advisory Committee. On one of my committees, the Economic Development Committee, David Foley, who hasn't attended a meeting in about 2 years, has not responded, so I would certainly not reappoint him. There's an associate member, Shirley Ming, who I would approach and see if she'd be willing to move up from the associate position to the full membership position. She's the one associated.
But for the purposes of tonight's vote, I would propose that we vote on everyone whose name is marked with a yes here, with the exceptions that not Nancy Tavernier and yes, Andy McGee. But
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussions? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Trotter, aye, unanimous.
All right. Board to discuss cable license renewal extension of time.
Yeah. Okay. You in the packet was a copy of the motion and a memorandum from attorney Bill Solomon, who's been representing us in the renewal negotiations with Comcast. And we've not been able to complete the negotiation process. And the protocol or the procedure is if you don't complete it and the expiration on the 10-year license is June 28th, you would just have to file what's called a friendly denial of the cable license renewal, with Comcast to allow for additional time for the parties to reach a cable license renewal agreement. It's important to note that the existing license will remain in effect until the renewal license is entered into between parties and Comcast. So I would urge a vote in favor of the motion that's before you.
Peter? Peter?
Okay, I just wanted to mention, I think Marion Maxwell might have had in her update this week that I'm a Comcast customer. Comcast has been charging $8 a month regional sports fee, and we haven't been getting any sports. So the suggestion was that people call Comcast, and apparently they've had inconsistent results, but it's possible to get that fee waived. And I don't know, John, I'm just a little unclear about what exactly the scope of these renegotiations are. Comcast sets the monthly fee. That's not part of the negotiations. It talks about the PEG access. I mean, we have pretty much 24-hour PEG access. What are the scope of these negotiations? What control do we have over what services that they provide?
Well, Mark, are you available? Mark Hald? Is Mark available now?
He's muted.
Could we unmute him? Because
He can unmute if he's there. So he's allowed to speak if he wants to.
Yeah, if he could speak, he is the, the staff person.
Okay.
The negotiations seem, it's been very difficult. I've not been pleased with our council's, work on this. It's prolonged. It's far more complex than it needs to be. The issues seem to be around the how much do we pay for INET? Is it $10,000 or $18,000? Their Comcast is holding to $18,000. They in turn said they would, make a $256,000 capital contribution to the town, and those seem to be the two issues as to whether those numbers work. And we really haven't gotten any great direction from council on it. It seems he had led us in one direction and then tells us, well, this is a great deal, take it. And so there's a lot of confusion. The cable advisory is a really good group of engineer people, and it's we spent probably a lot more time on it than we needed to. And I would think for our Verizon renewal, which would come up next year, I would look to have somebody else work with us on it. Just not been happy.
Okay, well, that's
We'll
helpful. I mean, if that's a substantial, if the amount of the capital contribution is one of the issues, that's a substantial.
Yeah, I mean, why I wanted Mark in on it is when he netted it out, it didn't seem all that substantial because that's over 10 years.
Oh, okay.
He had Mark is meeting with two committee members without our council to really try to, size our position up and whether, the deal that's on the table, we should take.
Okay, thank
So
you.
do we have to extend the time?
Well, this motion effectively extends the time, yes.
Okay.
So I could read the motion. I think we all have it. It's in the packet.
Yeah, but you should read it.
Okay, I will. Okay, so it's on behalf of the Town of Acton Board of Selectmen as cable television licensing issuing authority. Motion and vote to issue a preliminary assessment of there it is on the screen, of friendly denial of the cable license renewal of Comcast of Massachusetts 3 Inc. to allow for additional time for the parties to reach a cable license renewal agreement. Whereas the Town of Acton Town is desirous of completing the cable television license renewal process and reaching a cable license renewal agreement with Comcast of Massachusetts 3rd Inc. pursuant to the informal licensing process set out in Section 626H of the Cable Act. Whereas Comcast and the town have engaged in a good faith cable license negotiation process, and whereas the Board of Selectmen Board as cable television licensing issue authority deems it prudent to protect the interest of all parties with respect to the formal license renewal process. Now, therefore, because a renewal license agreement has not yet been finalized and issued by this board in order to protect the interest of the town and Comcast, as both parties work to finalize a renewal license agreement, the board, pursuant to Section 626C1 of the Cable Act, hereby votes to issue this preliminary assessment of friendly denial to provide additional time to complete the license renewal process and issue a renewal cable license. In order to provide the best opportunity for the parties to expeditiously reach an agreement regarding a cable television renewal license, The town special cable council will file a request/motion with the Department of Telecommunications and Cable of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to extend the time for the town to file a written statement detailing the reasons for its preliminary denial pursuant to 207 CMR 3.06 Section 3. This will provide additional time for the parties to finalize an agreement and for the town not issue a renewal license without the need to devote more time and attention to matters other than the completion of the renewal license by the Board of Selectmen, the Town of Acton, June 15th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second, but it's 2020, not 2019.
2020, I'm sorry.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter, aye, unanimous.
All right. Now, the board to approve the municipal green budget advocacy letter. Peter?
I didn't really put this on the agenda. This came from Bettina. It's not from the Green Advisory Board. You know, it is a letter basically requesting funding at the current level for all of the, I don't know if it's all, but different environmental programs. And my one concern about this was, you know, how is it, it's going to be a tough budget year. We don't have any numbers yet from the legislature, probably be into the next fiscal year before the legislature even gets a budget to the governor. So we have no idea what legal aid is going to look like. To the extent we're arguing for funding other initiatives at current levels, it could affect what kind of money goes into other programs that provide, you know, assistance to the town. On the other hand, these are relatively modest numbers. I am a big environmental advocate. I note that one of them is the Division of Ecological Restoration of the Department of Fish and Game, which talks about removing failing dams. I think that will be one source that the town will be looking for to help with the 53 River Street Dam. So I mean, Bettina asked us to review this, but just having looked at this, I would recommend, in my view, I would recommend that the board adopt this.
Dean?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. And, you know, certainly I respect Bettina's viewpoint on this. And I've read through the letter, and I agree with funding for all of these programs. Two concerns. One is I'm a little concerned with paid town staff getting into a position of advocacy. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. And second, I'll just reflect what Selectman Berry has said. You know, we don't really know what kind of swap-offs are going to have to be made during the budget process. And, you know, if we approve this letter, then there could be some other advocacy group next week with another letter in front of us wanting us to give blanket support for their particular programs. So I'm sitting on the fence about this, but I'm not really comfortable with it.
Anyone else? David?
Yes, you know, in general, I'm, you know, I read through this and I'm in favor of most of these areas, especially since the federal government is cutting down its support of many of the initiatives outlined in this memo. But I am curious as to whether the request came from town staff or did it come from the Green Advisory Board?
Bettina's on the line. She's saying she can answer. It did not come from the Green Advisory Board. It came from some state, as I understand it. Bettina can address this, I guess, but from some state environmental group that was asking the town to support this.
Hi, I got an email from Allison Fields Juma, who's executive director of ORS. And we work with, Natural Resources works with ORS, and we work with, all of these different organizations mentioned in the letter. And so Allison was just passing it along to those of us who work closely with ORS, saying, hey, would you mind making this known to your elected officials to see if they would be willing to sign on to the letter. And I got permission from the lady who had sent the letter. I said, our BOS can't meet until the 15th. And she said, no problem, that would be okay.
Thank you. I will just say that we have signed letters of advocacy in the past.
So is there a motion from anyone?
David, can you just scroll down? Do they have the signatories?
That's the end.
Okay, I thought there was a list of people signed on to this, but okay.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Bettina, just keep in mind with this that those of us who were on with the MMA webinar last Friday and hearing from its legislative director, John Robertson, there was one prediction that, no one knows for sure what the revenue numbers are going to look like for FY21. But there was a strong sense that tax collections could be off by as much as 19% next year over this year. So that's going to cause a lot of pain.
Yes, sir, I understand. These different state departments, are critical, and they're just asking for the same level of funding and hoping that it wouldn't be cut.
David?
So I personally would have felt more comfortable with this if one of the town committees, like the Green Advisory Board, had reviewed this first and discussed it maybe in more detail than we can do it here. But it sounds like there's a deadline. I'm not sure what the best action is. And Joan, there is one hand raised.
Okay, let's bring that person in.
It's Kara from West Acton, and I don't see anything wrong with sending an advocacy letter for something that it's in our, this work is all in our master plan. It's all work that's ongoing. It's basically just advocating for budgets to stay the same. There's lots of work going on in advocacy by town staff for other boards and committees, other parts of the master plan. And I think it's proactive of Bettina to bring this forward, and I'm all in favor, and I hope you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the budget, what John Robertson said is that the legislature will never get a budget done by the end of June, and will enter the new fiscal year with an interim budget for at least the first couple of months, at least through July anyway. But I don't think it does any harm, and it's a good gesture to support the letter. I don't know what necessarily what would come of it.
So is there a motion?
Yeah, I would move that we approve the letter addressed to the chairs of the Joint Committee on Ways and Means to level fund the various state environmental and conservation departments set forth in the letter. Level fund for 21.
I'll second.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Trotter, aye, unanimous.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Bettina.
Thank you so much.
Okay, outdoor dining and license amendments.
So this is just the process to allow our licensed establishments to serve liquor outside if we haven't already allowed them to do so. The board has already approved, I believe, 8 of these. The most recent was Friday morning of Crossroads Cafe. Lisa Tommel reports that there are no additional businesses seeking permission tonight, which means that they're either not interested in trying to serve outside or just haven't figured out their plans yet. And so
Okay.
as I mentioned last week, we have 19 establishments, so there are about 9 to 10 that we haven't heard from yet, or that haven't finalized their plans yet.
I drove by Rapscallion today, and they're putting in a new patio, so it's going to be quite nice there.
Yeah, we had dinner on that patio last night. It's very nice. I'd urge y'all to go there. They did a very nice job with it, and I think people were getting used to new dining arrangements. You get served in box.
Okay, the consent item is to accept a gift to the Council on Aging for $50 from Dot Keemer in memory of Ray Steves toward the Council on Aging gift fund.
I move
Is there
to accept consent item 10.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Trotter, aye, unanimous.
Joan, one other item. We're due to meet next Monday at 5 o'clock. There was discussion to have our Faulkner Award ceremony that night. I think Peter would like it done while he's still on the board. Do we all know who the 5 recipients are? Have we all made our nominations?
Yes, I have.
I have.
I
We all
have.
have? Okay. So do you want to go ahead with that next Monday at the Monday meeting?
Yes.
Okay, and we should invite then the recipients themselves to Zoom in with us.
Okay. Dean?
Yeah, I'm just questioning 5 p.m. start time. What else are we going to be handling at that meeting?
Possibly allocating further money to the business relief program and anything that comes up with respect to, town meeting.
Well, sort of my earlier point about the unusually early start time for town meeting. Now, I'm a little uneasy with the fact that we keep moving around these start times for our selectmen's meetings as well.
There's a reason for that. The Board of Health typically meets on the second and fourth Mondays, where we meet typically on the first and third, and continuing our practice of meeting weekly without having 2 major meetings going on at the same time for the IT department to handle. We moved our meetings on the second and fourth to 5 o'clock, just on a one-shot basis.
Okay, if it's just technical, I can understand that. I'm getting very uneasy about, all of these meetings being moving targets, start times being moving targets, I think it's very tough for the constituents to keep track of us. And, you know, I think that's not as democratic a situation as I would like to see going forward.
So noted. Has everyone?
Well, hold on. I think that next week is the 3rd, isn't it? The 3rd?
No, today is the 3rd because the first.
Today's the 15th. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
So has everyone sent the nomination name in to Lisa? Because she'll make up the plaques.
Yeah, it'd be helpful to have those tomorrow or today if possible, so she can get a jump on that.
Okay.
Also, we should allow for time for Peter and comments for Peter to say farewell and for us to comment on Peter. And I would also, I'm happy to do it. Nancy Tavernier, as we know, has stepped down after, I think it's 22 years, running the ACHC. And I'm happy to offer comments on Nancy next week.
Okay.
So John, you're saying that each one of us should call Lisa and tell her the name again. I mean, we might have done that already, but make sure you check in with Lisa and tell her who you nominated for the award.
Yes, please.
All right. Anything else?
Or motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Berry,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Medlin,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Trotter, aye, unanimous.
All right. Thank you all for your constant participation.
See you Thursday.
Good evening.
Aye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.